Mayoral Memo with Matthew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.
Zoo FM Breaky, as we get you woken up. Thanks so much for your company. Looking at an unprecedented move to reduce littering in the community right here in Dubbo. The Mayor is on the phone to tell us about big plans for the city. And it's a huge move for Dubbo, and apparently he's been spearheading this. Dubbo Regional Council announcing plans to create a world-first comprehensive DNA database of all its residents. Mr. Mayor, good morning to you. This is great news.
Good morning, Brett. Yeah, I think it is great news, actually. I've been focused on what we could do about cleaning up some of the rubbish around the city. And it all started when we had some great volunteers, both in Dubbo and Wellington, on Clean Up Australia Day. And they sent me through some of the photos and some of the things that they'd cleaned up throughout the day. And it was actually quite disappointing to see how much rubbish there was there. And the organisers of that said, what can council do about this? And I started thinking, well, really, it's not up to council to fix this problem because it's really just people throwing rubbish out or dropping rubbish. And it's a bit disappointing that so many people do that. I mean, the best we could do as a council is possibly go out and do a few more cleanups, but that is expensive. That costs the community more money for people that just drop rubbish. So it was all a bit disappointing. And then I started thinking, Brett, I thought, is there something council could do about this? Is there some sort of technology? So a bit more investigation, a bit more research. And the rubbish that people drop typically still has some information about that person on them. So not fingerprints, that's a bit hard to maintain on a bit of rubbish that's thrown out a car window, for example, but typically people's DNA is still on that rubbish. A bit more investigation, and I found out that all we've got to do is have the DNA of all our residents, for example, and then we do some testing with that rubbish that's been thrown out of a car window, dropped on the side of the Track O'Reilly cycleway, and with that DNA we could actually identify who the person is and then find them. And I don't think it'd take long, Brett, going through that process to start to reduce the amount of rubbish.
Do you think it's all about that? I mean, what about those people that sort of sit there and go, well, you're invading my privacy? And some of them might even criticise you, Matthew Dickerson, about, well, this is just another way to get a fine and raise revenue. Is that a worry for this?
Well, it is a bit of a worry, but I'm okay with that criticism, Brett, because I think at the end of it all, we want to create a cleaner environment for our community, for our city. And if we can do that, if it involves a little bit of invasion of privacy, then I can live with that. Now, the fines really, in my mind, would be a deterrent. We haven't determined exactly how much that fine will be yet, but if you get caught with littering now, there is a standard fine. You could be fined by the police if they catch you littering anyway. So it'd be along the same lines of those fines. But I hope, Brett, that we never have to fine someone. My dream would be we never have to actually fine someone because we get to the point where people know if they're going to litter, then it means that they're going to be caught. So just don't do it in the first place. What we'd start off with, if we did have some fines, then we would not only use it as a bit of a deterrent, but any other environmental initiatives. And for example, we've just got our Macquarie River Master Plan for the south and the north areas all approved. So we could use some of the money from fines to start to implement some of those parts of the Macquarie River Master Plan. But ultimately, yes, I don't want to fine people. I want to actually have the point where no litter is seen throughout the entire community.
And Matt, it looks like you're on a tight deadline with this because you ought to get this done in, 104 days? That's 3 months, is it?
Well, this is all going to start today. The 1st of April seems like the absolutely perfect day to start a scheme like this. And then I think what will happen throughout the community is people will see that they're an absolute fool if they keep littering in our community. And you're right, 0104 days is the time that I've allocated to collect all that DNA. And then we'll have a grace period, Brett, which I only think seems fair so people get used to the idea. But we'll start implementing fines from the 1st of April 2024.
But don't you think it's a little bit foolish of council to do it this way because there's a lot of money probably in these DNA kits? Wouldn't it be easier if people just could put the rubbish in the bin?
Well, Brett, that's a great idea. Can you have a talk to the residents for me and ask them to do that? Because at the moment, they don't seem to be doing that. So you're right, it does seem foolish that they're doing that at the moment, and I'd really love it not to be that way. And I've got a bit of a problem when people come through from other LGAs, other local government areas, because we won't have their DNA on our database. But as we collect the DNA in this database and this trial is successful, we hope, then other local government areas, I'm sure, will start going down this same path. So we'll have all the DNA from all the people across the entire state. So it doesn't matter where you're from, you'll be caught out. And again, I can't emphasise it enough, Brett, you would be a fool to continue littering under that environment.
It's just one of those things. It's not getting me right this morning, I don't think. It's almost like I'm smelling that there's some sort of a rat under this. Are you sure this is not just to make money?
I'm pretty sure it's not just to make money. I want to look after the environment. I want to look after the community, Brett. Look, I think you might be smelling a bit of a rat there, because maybe today, the day we're announcing this, the day we're launching this, might be a bit of a hint there in something that you might be smelling as maybe not quite right with this whole scheme.
So April 1st.
You've hit the nail on the head, Brett. 1st of April. I'm glad you've joined in with me to have a bit of fun today.
Happy April 1st Day. Is that right? Happy April Fool's Day.
Something like that, April Fool's Day. It's always good to see what we can dream up, Brett, and see what things we might be able to talk about happening in the community. So rest assured, there's no DNA collection happening. Sure, we'd like people not to be littering so much, but there's no DNA collection to try and catch people out littering.
But on a serious note, we would love people to put the rubbish into the bin, but no DNA kits and no DNA sampling, of course, just an April Fool's gag. Good one, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much for your time. I hope next year we'll come up with something better.
Right, thanks, Brett. I appreciate you playing along.
Dubbo Region Mayor Matthew Dickinson there with an April Fool's gag right here at 2FM.
Mayoral Memo with Matthew Dickinson from Dubbo Regional Council.